My father-in-law thought I was poor until he saw my mansion. I've been married to my wife Mary for 3 years now, and her parents have always judged me because I work from home. My wife's parents are very traditional in a way that they believe that you can only get rich if you get a degree and get a good job. Though there is nothing wrong with a degree, school has not always been my best option, as I never had good grades and was never motivated by it. I found my way into e-commerce and have enjoyed the process of selling things online. It may be difficult, but for those who end up committing, they know that the profits are very rewarding. I've done this for 4 years before I met my wife, and over those 4 years, I've generated over $10 million in sales and have been able to buy a nice house in my city. When I met my wife's parents, I always told them that I was self-employed and I did different side hustles online. They always assumed that I was broke since they believe that no one can make a stable income online. I never bothered to correct them as I didn't care if they thought I was rich or not. It wasn't until a family gathering at her parents' house, when we were deciding whose house we were going to for our Christmas gathering. My wife decided to tell everyone that we should host the gathering, but her parents were not a fan of the idea. They told her that our house was not big enough for all 4 families that were going to visit and assumed that our house was small. They suggested my sister-in-law's house, which had 3 bedrooms and 2,500 square feet of space. For context, the house we live in is 6,500 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. But of course, they don't know that. They ended up talking about how nice my sister-in-law's house was and how they were able to afford it because of her husband's job as a real estate agent. Then they looked at me and said, "So are you still doing those silly side hustles?" As they laughed and giggled, I smiled and said, "Yes, those silly side hustles are still making me a little bit of income." They continued to talk me down, saying how I should find another profession to make a living because I don't make enough, and that maybe if I found another job, I could get a house like my sister-in-law's. Now you can watch part 2 by pressing share and then more. Part 2. My father-in-law thought I was poor until he saw my mansion. I quietly laughed, looked at my father-in-law, and asked him how much he thought I made. He sat there quietly and said, "Maybe $30,000 a year?" I looked at him with an impressed expression and told him that he was, in fact, accurate. His face lit up, and he said he trusted his gut and guessed how much I made. I thought to myself, what an idiot. This man has no clue that I make that in less than a week, but I played along with his game and acted shocked. Throughout the night, my father-in-law continued to make rude remarks about my income, but failed to get under my skin. When we left, my wife burst out laughing and asked me why I kept playing along. I told her I had no reason to prove anything, and that I couldn't care less what he thought about me. A couple of months passed, and the Christmas gathering was approaching. The first 2 families arrived at the airport, and my wife and I picked them up in the morning. Night came, and my wife and I went to pick up the last 2 families for our gathering, including my in-laws. My wife drove her Porsche while I drove my G-Wagon to the airport to pick them up. I made sure my father-in-law was in the car with me, and I could tell he was shocked to see 2 expensive vehicles pulling up to pick them up. As we drove to our house, I looked at my father-in-law in the back seat and saw him speechless and quiet, which was unusual because he would normally have brought up my job by now. The moment came, and we pulled up to the gate of our neighborhood. I started entering the code, and as I went back inside, my father-in-law asked me if we were in the right place, looking around confused. I told him yes, and that we were 2 minutes away from our house. As we drove, my father-in-law looked out the window, admiring all the massive houses in my neighborhood with his mouth open. When we pulled up to our driveway, he asked, "This is the house you guys live in?" with a confused and pitying look. I said yes with a smirk as I started opening the garage. When I drove into the garage, he witnessed the most beautiful thing. There was my Porsche 911 GT3 RS in shark blue, sitting there looking stunning. I looked back, grinning, and asked if he liked my car. The look on his face was priceless. To this day, I wish I could go back in time to see his face again. My wife gave him a tour of the house, and when they returned to the kitchen where all the adults were hanging out, he asked my wife how she was able to afford all of this. My wife looked at him confused and asked if he really thought her financial analyst salary could buy everything he had seen so far. My father-in-law gave me the biggest side-eye and said, "Well, it can't be from his $30,000 salary." When he said that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I looked at him laughing and told him that I made that in 1 week, and that the side hustles I do online have turned into businesses that I built from the ground up. That whole Christmas gathering made me feel so good about myself. My father-in-law stopped his rude remarks and started acting nice around me now. Every time we visit, he always suggests that we host the next family gatherings, which I respond to by laughing hysterically and saying no. I guess they felt like they were living in a hotel during their stay at my house, especially since they spent half their time outside by the pool, sunbathing. But no. That will be the last time I let him stay at my house, and my wife supports that decision.